I have kept the salt terraces my whole life, and my father kept them before me, and his mother before him, and none of us ever thought about the dish on the ridge above the house. It had been dead since before the diaspora split our sky from Earth's. A stub of pitted metal on 3 legs, half buried in wind-blown salt, pointed at nothing anyone could name. We called it the Old Ear, and told our children not to climb it because the footing was bad. That was the whole of what we knew about listening station Halyard. My daughter Yeneth was 7 days into the fever when the healer at Bellow Ridge told me there was nothing left to try that hadn't already failed. Halvoth children do not often die of the marsh rot anymore, not since the water plants were fixed 2 generations back, but the strain in her blood that year did not answer to anything we had. The healer was kind about it. She said the kindest thing she had left to offer was the ledger send. I am not a devout man, but when a healer offers you the last right your people have for the dying, you do not ask her to explain why it exists. The ledger send is old, older than the terraces, older than the healer's grandmother's grandmother. You lay the failing one under the array, you let the machine read everything the body still has to say, and you send it outward toward the choir of record, so that whatever is not lost twice. It is not medicine. It has never once, in all our records, brought anyone back. It only makes sure someone remembers. We do not use the Old Ear for the ledger send. We use the working array at Bellow Ridge, 40 minutes by cart, its dish clean and tended and aimed, as it has always been aimed, at the choir's listening world 3 systems coreward. I carried Yeneth there myself, wrapped against the wind, and the healer's assistant fixed the leads to her wrist and throat, and the small of her back, and the machine began its slow read of her vitals, her lineage, her name spoken forward into whatever was left of the night. What none of us knew, what I only learned after, from a woman who had no business knowing my daughter's name and knew it anyway, is that the Bellow Ridge Array had been quietly rerouting its overflow traffic through the Old Ear for 11 years, ever since a storm cracked its own long-range dish, and the technicians patched the gap the cheap way, bouncing the weak end of the signal off the dead relay on our ridge to boost the throughput. Nobody thought it mattered. The Old Ear was supposed to be a corpse. Corpses do not answer mail. Except listening station, Halyard was never fully dead. It had been sleeping on standby power drawn off a decaying isotope cell nobody had bothered to log as active, and it had spent 406 years listening to a sky that stopped speaking to it the day the diaspora closed the old channels. When our overflow traffic started leaking through its receiver, it did exactly what it had always been built to do. It relayed, onward, along a route so old that half the stations on it no longer existed, until it reached a small monitoring office on Earth that still, out of institutional habit nobody could quite justify to their budget committee, kept a technician listening on the legacy diaspora-era bands. Her name was Priya Okonjo Marsh, and she told me later that the packet came through garbled and half-degraded, and utterly unlike anything in her instruction manual. Not a hail, not a distress code, nothing with a header she recognized. What she had was raw biometric telemetry, a failing heart rhythm, a cascading immune response, a genetic signature that did not match any species in Earth's exchange archive, and, threaded under all of it, a name spoken once in a language the translation engine took 4 minutes to even flag as language. She said she almost logged it as sensor noise and went to lunch. She did not go to lunch. She flagged it to the cross-species medical desk instead, because the vitals pattern, whatever species they belonged to, were the pattern of something dying in a way her training told her might not have to. There was, she told me, an argument at that desk before anyone did anything at all. The packet had no request attached to it. No plea, no header asking for help. Nothing any protocol on Earth's books recognized as a call. Half the room wanted to log it as an intercepted internal transmission and move on. You do not answer a letter that was never addressed to you, one officer said, not without knowing who you are answering it as. Priya pointed out that the letter did not need to be addressed to anyone. A body does not stop dying because the paperwork is wrong. Nobody argued her down. The desk gave her 3 hours, and with a database that had never once cataloged a Halvoth, she built the protocol from adjacency, closest immune architecture, closest fever response on record, and flagged every uncertainty in the margins, rather than fake a confidence they did not have. Priya told me later, the hardest part was not the science. It was deciding, twice, to keep going after the model warned the confidence interval was too wide to responsibly send. She sent it anyway, caveats attached, and let a stranger's healer make the final call with the risk laid out plainly in front of her. I want to be honest about what came back to us, because I have heard other terraces' families tell this differently, and I do not want mine added to the pile of exaggeration. Earth did not send a ship. Nothing landed at Bellow Ridge. No warship's shadow crossed the terraces that night, or any night after. What came back, 11 hours later, riding the same accidental relay chain in reverse, was a data packet. Compact, precisely labeled, apologetic in a way that machine language should not have been able to manage. It contained a stabilization protocol built from 3 hours of frantic cross-referencing between a species neither Priya nor her desk had ever treated, and every fever response in Earth's own medical archive, plus a note, in careful formal script, explaining that they understood this transmission had not been addressed to them, that they had intercepted it by accident, of an old relay neither party knew was live, and that they were sending the protocol anyway, because the alternative was watching the telemetry go flat and doing nothing. The healer at Bellow Ridge read the packet twice before she trusted it. It matched nothing in our pharmacology, and it should not have worked on a body it was never designed for. But whoever had built it had done the harder thing and adapted it, not just repeated it. And by the second dose, Yeneth's fever broke its climb for the first time in 8 days. I did not understand, that night, that we had been answered by strangers who had never heard of the terraces, who had no treaty with us, no history with us, no reason to spend a technician's night on a garbled signal not meant for them. I understood only that my daughter's breathing had slowed from a fight into something closer to sleep. It was 3 weeks before the formal report reached us, not from Earth, but from our own Array Authority, embarrassed and thorough, tracing the leak back through 11 years of undocumented patch cables to the old ear on our ridge. They wanted to apologize for the breach. They wanted to know why a private medical transmission had crossed species lines without authorization. I told them I did not care how it had happened. I told them the machine on the ridge that we warned our children away from had done, by accident, what nothing in our own system had managed on purpose. I went up to the old ear myself, after, stood on the bad footing my father always warned about, put my hand on the pitted metal, and found nothing there to thank. No crew, no captain, no fleet standing off behind it in the dark. Just a dish, patient and unglamorous, that had kept listening long after everyone who built it stopped expecting an answer to matter.
I understand now that is closer to the truth than any story about warships. Nobody decided to save my daughter.
A machine that would not stop listening handed a stranger's mistake to a woman who would not go to lunch, and she decided, on her own authority, in 11 hours, that a signal that was never meant for her still deserved an answer. Yeneth is 9 now. She does not remember the fever. She remembers the ridge and the dish, and asking me once why we keep an old dead thing standing in the wind instead of hauling it down for scrap. I told her the truth, which is that it is not dead, and that we do not always get to choose who hears us, only whether we speak at all. We have since sent a formal channel of our own toward that small office on Earth, addressed properly this time, thanking a technician neither of us has ever met for a decision that was never asked of her, and that she made anyway, in the dark, on a signal that was never hers to answer. She wrote back one line, "I have never sent for medical protocol before. I hope I never have to send for anything else, but I am glad the relay was still listening." I keep that line where I can find it. Some records are worth more than an archive was ever meant to hold.